Welcome to part 4 of our DIY deck build series. In part 3, we hoisted up what we think is literally the sturdiest set of deck stairs we've ever walked up, and on this video, we're heading up top to make this deck completely waterproof. Can a couple of first-timers use this huge sheet of rubber to make a deck with dry space underneath and a frame that will never get wet? Let's find out.
Well, it all made it down to the ground.
Georgie, what do you think?
We're all done with deck framing, and today starts a new portion of the deck project, which I would say less than 1% of decks get, which is a waterproofing system. We're going to make all of the space underneath this deck dry space, and more importantly to me anyway, the frame of the deck will be kept dry for its lifetime, extending its life quite a bit. Now honestly, I had never even really heard of deck waterproofing before, probably a year ago, and I don't even really remember where I did hear of it, but I came across Dr. Deck's YouTube videos, and when it came time to start planning for this deck project, I took all of his videos that had the word waterproofing in the title, put them in a playlist, and watched all of them to get an idea of how best to do this, what materials to use, how everything should be laid out. And in this video, I'm going to try my best attempt at doing the same system on our deck. The star of the show is this guy right behind me. That is a heavy-duty EPDM sheet. It's made by a brand called Firestone. I think they're kind of the leader in that, and I'm pretty sure that it's related to the Firestone tire brand. They both make rubber products, but regardless, that is extremely high quality material. It's the same stuff used for rubber roofing, and I have about a 17 by 30 foot sheet there. It came on a big roll, and honestly, I cannot lift that by myself. No lie, that sheet weighs over 200 pounds. It's a two-man lift for sure, and it's not cheap either. I paid about $1.10 per square foot plus tax, which was by far the best price I could find locally. I got other prices up to like $2 a square foot. So overall, the waterproofing project is gonna add about $500 to $600 to the total deck. But if it can make the deck last longer and provide some dry space underneath, I think that's totally worth it. The basics of the system are that EPDM sheet is draped between the joist bays and then sloped down to this beam where the gutter is going to mount. I spent some time going back and forth about whether to mount the gutter on this side or this side of the beam, and I am going to do it on the inside. I'm going to have to add a piece of 2x4 in each bay all the way across in order to mount the baffle on. There's these vertical baffles that create sort of an end dam for the channel coming down. Then there's a return channel that comes out and over top of the main baffle. That way even the water that lands over here flows this way, drops into that baffle, flows this way, hits our end dam baffle, and goes right down into our gutter, which goes down to a downspout. When I put these 2x8 mid-span blocks in, I thought the 2-inch height difference between our 2x10 joists was going to be enough, but I'm thinking I want to carve those out a little bit more. So in hindsight, I probably should have used a 2x6 or a 2x4, but life lesson learned the hard way. So I'm gonna use my Sawzall and carve some like smiley shapes out of each one of these. I just do not wanna risk the EPDM sagging in the front bays towards the house and eventually touching this 2x8, which would create a ponding effect where I'd have puddles of water over there. I want the slope to be steep enough that there's never a risk of that. I had this piece of 2x2 laying around from a rip from earlier in the project, and I'm just gonna go ahead and use this because I'm just stapling a piece of rubber to it anyway. And luckily I still have all my measurements from my mid-span blocking, so I can easily cut all these without having to measure anything, which is convenient. So I got my first one wedged in here right now. I'm just trying to mock it up and visualize what's going on here. I set the front face of it out a 1/2 inch past the plane of these bolts. So that way when I put some finished material on this and then hang the gutter, my baffle is pretty much still coming straight down into the gutter. Then I took my tape measure just to give me sort of a straight edge and ran it all the way back to the house to give me like a rough slope of what that's gonna look like when it's all said and done. That's what this rough sketch line is here. So that sort of helped me establish the height of this piece. My baffle is gonna come pretty much just to the top of this. That main channel is gonna come and die right into the baffle with maybe like an inch or so gap, and that way the water can come down and fall right into the gutter. I did the same thing with the tape measure from the outside of the deck and over, and this return is going to come over around a foot past the end of my main channel. That's what this squiggly line is showing right here, and this arrow is showing the water coming down over, dropping into my main channel, coming down over and down into the baffle. So that is the basic idea. I'm gonna put these little guys all the way across, and that'll give me something to staple my baffle to. The saying is, if you do anything more than 3 times, make a jig for it. So I made this little index card to let me know where the top edge of these little spacers need to be, which also helps with putting the screws in because I know where to start the screw from the other side and I'm not totally blind with it. Well, that was pretty easy. Got all of our baffle hangers, I guess I'm gonna call them, in, and I went ahead and cut one first test baffle just to see that I could get all the dimensions right. Our standard joist bay here is 14.5 wide, obviously, and I thought about 4 inches on either side was a good kind of side lap here. So I rounded up to 23 inches long, just eyeballing where approximately this gutter is gonna mount. I'm thinking it's gonna be no lower than right here. And that gives us a height of about 13 inches from the top of this guy. And I let this thing stick up a little bit. I probably could take it down even lower, but 13 inches to the bottom edge here. And that should give us at least a couple inches inside the gutter. Now I just gotta make 10 more of those, get them stapled up. I'm using 3/8 galvanized staples to fasten them, and they seem to hold really well. Had some scrap left over after cutting these baffles, so I'll probably be able to use this for one of the returns, but I just wanted to confirm how wide I actually needed to cut them. The numbers that Dr. Dex had mentioned were 18 and 28, so 18 towards the house and 28 out here. And after messing around with it, I can confirm those are the magic numbers. There's 28 if we're measuring between the outsides of the joists, and it puts the baffle pretty much about an inch above the bottom edge of the joist. So it's not coming through the ceiling below, and it's not too high either. It's still got plenty of leeway to hit this guy. The return this way can come over top with plenty of gap left. Up at the shallow end, here's what 18 looks like. So it's not dead tight. There's still definitely a dish, probably an inch or so drop, but that'll give me a nice steep slope to make sure we get any debris cleaned out that ever accumulates in here. I also took a look at what I needed to cut out of these guys. This is a good example of a life lesson learned the hard way. I shouldn't have put these things in until I did this exercise. I'm not sure why I did that. I think I was just trying to get things moved along. If I go to the midway point between my 18 and 28 magic numbers, which is 23, this piece of block is at the midway point of the joist run, or of the span. So it's going to be around the 23-inch mark on my rubber at this midway point. So I mocked this up, took a little pencil line to see where that landed me. Then I gave myself about a 1/2 inch of leeway and made a little cardboard template. Copied this on all of the different joist bays, traced around it, and coincidentally, the space that's actually left of this is just about the width of a 2x4. So I could have saved myself a whole 2x8, used a 2x4 instead, and not have to do any of this work. But like I said, it's a life lesson learned the hard way. I should have used 2x4s here, so learn from that mistake. So I'm gonna start with the hole saw and core out at the very bottom, and then use my Sawzall and cut upwards and see if I can make this little smiley face work. Luckily, I have a good set of hole saws. It makes this a heck of a lot easier. What is new construction without a little demolition, am I right? Just rounding the edges off so that the baffle doesn't catch on any of the sharp edges. All right, well that wasn't too hateful. They're doing about as much blocking as a 2x4 is doing now. Gave the Sawzall a good workout though. So I'm gonna grab the blower, blow all that sawdust off, and then we are ready to start cutting the baffles. Spend some time with the tape measure, calculator, notebook, and pencil, and I think I've got a good plan for cutting this beast out. The typical long channel is 118 inches long, 18 on one side, 28 on the other. I've got some typical returns as well. Those are 46 inches long, and I already cut these rectangular baffles over here. So to get the best use out of this sheet, I took the measurements into account, which are 17.2 that way, and it's only 28.4 this way. It was 30, and then I cut off one strip for those baffles. So with what I have left, I'm just gonna go down the whole one side and stagger those trapezoids so that I'm getting the most out of the material. And even on the end here, I luckily can keep this square because of either end that has the surface blocking. That needs a big piece over top of it and with a square edge. So that is the general plan. We're gonna chalk a line at 118 inches all the way across and then start cutting out our trapezoids. It's the big line that says 118 on it. You got it? So this end baffle, this is gonna be only one of its kind until we get to the other side. But this will give us a good idea how this works out with doing one square edge, seeing how it lays. We're gonna have to adjust the angle slightly on our next trapezoids because this is a 10-inch offset for the diagonal and then the other ones are only 5-inch. Straight enough. Very satisfying to push the scissors through this stuff. Just trimming it to fit around this flashing end dam that I have bent in here. There's obvious fall. I mean, it's pretty significant. I don't think there's gonna be any problem with water flowing out of this. We'll definitely test that. We might get some rain later today and tomorrow too, so that'll be a good test as well. You can see it in action.
Georgie, what do you think?
I'm just trimming the end to rough fit here because it is just a hair long, 1/2 inch or so out of it. Not taking much. I'm gonna do like every 6 inch of staple. You're gonna finish this house by yourself if I tip off the deck. Honestly, I feel like the less staples the better because it's just less holes. I don't know. As long as it can hold itself on there before we put on deck boards, I mean, that's what's really gonna hold it on is the compression of the deck boards. Probably the less staples the better. The V-braces are great for walking though. We'll try every 12 inches, see what happens.
Sweetie boy!
Now he's in the dirt. All right, here's the inaugural test. I have some debris in here too to simulate what's going on. Well, it all made it down to the ground. It definitely travels the very center portion only, of course, because it's the lowest. So if you ever do have debris that somehow washes up on the sides, I guess that would be an issue, but luckily ours will be accessible from the bottom. So I guess if you also washed out through the deck boards with some water and like actually targeted that one little bit. Yeah, oh yeah, there you go. There it is floating down. So I don't think we're gonna have any real problems with it like clogging or anything. Like it all seems to float out. Yeah, I guess the rain actually would be coming down the sides too, because you have a deck board going this way and there's cracks all along. So yeah, I think that'll work well. On to the next one. We had to kind of reset our bearings because this outside one had the square edge and all the taper was on one side. So it was a steeper angle than our normal channels here, which is what we're getting started on. So after we do this one, it should be easy because we just flip-flop this all the way down. We started with snapping a midline and then going on one side 9 inches on either end of it. That's our narrow end. And on this end, 14 inches. We made marks and then connected the dots. So it kind of looks like a rectangle, honestly, but it is a very slight trapezoid. Your hanger strap is falling out.
My what?
Your hanger strap.
Get on your feet, this sights to see. Rolling hills or city streets. Ocean to ocean and all in between. It's out there just waiting on you and me. Take it in, we got no plans. Good things come to those who.
So channel 1 is fully stapled in on both sides, and I'm starting here on channel 2. This is where the real magic happens because we're going to have to seam these two so that they're watertight in between. Also wanted to talk about what I'm doing up here up against the house. So this metal head flashing comes up about 6 inches. This is something we installed when we did the deck ledger before we did any of the siding. So it's zip taped to the sheathing, and then there's also a rain screen behind the siding too. If you checked out our rain screen video, that is both above and below the deck ledger. That means if somehow water were to ever get on this side of the deck ledger and try to wick back behind the siding, or even if somehow water got behind this and went behind the deck ledger, it has a path all the way down to that piece of flashing above our stone veneer that's open channel, and it can easily drain out and dry. So in theory, that should never happen, especially if we execute this detail right. It's kind of hard to see, but I've tucked the end of this all the way up underneath this flashing on top of the ledger itself, which is protected with layer of zip tape. So that's going to take care of most of the water draining down here. The deck boards themselves are going to sit on top of this flashing. That's why there's this 1-inch gap underneath our door trim. That'll give it a nice clean look, and I'll probably go ahead and just tap the centers of these down a little bit so when we set that deck board on, it doesn't create a seal all the way across this flashing. There's some divots that the water can get down underneath the deck board and into the waterproofing bladder. As far as the treatment here for how we're going to lap these guys, I'm going to put a flat ribbon bead of zip liquid flash across this, which will cover all the staple heads. Lay this flap on top, get it situated, and drive staples down through that. Then at the very end, I'm going to come back with some joist tape, put that over the whole run here. That will cover all the second row of staples, and it gives us protection where the screws drive in as well. EPDM, from what I read, does not really seal around fasteners that well, but joist tape does. Here's how I'll be extruding the ribbon bead of the zip liquid flash. This is the Albion B12 S20 sausage gun. Also works with bulk and 10-ounce cartridges too, so it's really the one gun that does everything. Pretty handy. And this is a trimmable nozzle as well. So I trimmed it to around 1 inch. Then I'll use a zip roller to smooth everything out. Yeah, this thing works nicely. We could probably get away with less, but luckily this stuff's pretty darn sticky, so mostly will stay, I think. Trying to mush all that in there. It actually works pretty good as glue too. It definitely did not want to budge. EPDM is listed on the data sheet for zip liquid flash. It's technically supposed to be a window and door flashing product, so not surprised they have it listed for use with a roofing product like EPDM. All right, we're moving right along here. Day 2 of waterproofing. Got a few more of these done. Getting a little bit more of a process going here. Right now I'm just doing the last little trim to get this perfect. About 1 inch from where the apron is, or the baffle, is what I'm cutting these little channels back to, so that it's not so far out that it misses the gutter, but not so close that debris and water or whatever gets trapped in there without draining out. It's very sticky right out of the tube, so even when I don't have any fasteners in this application, I can just press this in and it will stay. And even though there's gravity pulling this pretty heavy membrane down, it does a great job at keeping it stuck in place. Overall, it's quite apparent that it is a very high quality sealant, and definitely one to have in your toolbox for a lot of different applications. It's specifically rated to bond to EPDM rubber, but it will bond to a lot of different surfaces: wood, masonry, I think metal's on there. The data sheet has the full list, but it's harder to find something that it will not stick to be quite honest. Check this out. This is what a sausage looks like when it's all done. There's almost nothing left except this little piece of mushed up aluminum and whatever was left inside the nozzle. That's all the waste there is. That's wonderful. All right, back at it today. Got a little bit rained out yesterday. It was on and off raining literally all day, which was really good though to see this thing in action. Looking at all of the baffles actually working and draining. The only concerns I had was on the flat blocking there. As you can see, there's still a puddle that's not fully dried yet. Over here, there was one forming kind of in the middle, and that's just a result of that flat blocking being just a little bit below the two joists it's between. So I don't love that. My worry is that the water would sit there and over time work its way into the fastener holes from like the decking screws that are going through it, and eventually water could wick into that surface blocking and start rotting it out. However, the alternative is not having anything there except joist tape, and you would probably have a similar issue because you'd still be sealing off that flat blocking. But I didn't really want to leave that surface blocking proud of the deck joist, so I'm not sure if there's really a whole lot you could have done preemptively for it, except maybe, you know, slope the whole deck so it all runs to one side. But I think it'll be just fine. I'm gonna keep trucking with all of the returns. I've already got them pre-cut, and these are just the same thing as the big channels, except they go about 10 to 12 inches over the edge of this. So they'll start here, lap over my rim joist, and then slope down. That way any water that hits here runs that way, drops into the main channel, runs that way down into the gutter. Same deal for these slightly longer returns at the top of the stairs. I had to cut these end ones a little bit differently though, just because of the extra width of the beam here and the surface blocking over there, but it's the same general principle, just running out over the main channels. For reference, this is what that zip liquid flash looks like when it's cured. It is really stuck on there. It looks like it's basically a permanent bond, so I really am glad that we use that just in case any water were to wick over this edge and try to get back in here. It will quickly hit that liquid flash bead. And with the last few staples, we officially have a waterproofed deck frame. I still have to hit some of the edges to staple down the flap that's hanging down over the side, but overall, that's the majority of putting the channels and the baffles in. That was really not that bad, not that much work. I didn't really keep track of hours or anything, but it took about a day to kind of figure out the plan and cut the first bit of baffles and install them, and then another half day or so to do the same thing on this return side. But overall, I think it turned out really well. And now we just need another good rainstorm to test the full system now that the returns are installed. We're not completely done though. I still need to put some joist tape along these top edges of these joists to seal not only the staples here, but to provide a seal for the deck fasteners that are to come through this. I've done some reading and found that EPDM by itself is not that great at sealing fastener penetrations and sealing around screws and staples and things like that. So joist tape is. It's a laminated polyethylene tape. It's 2 layers of low density poly with a layer of high density poly in between, and then some acrylic adhesive on the bottom. And I'm gonna stick that along each joist all the way down over top these staples, and that will give us a watertight seal even when we drill some screws through it. For that, I'll be using this Moisture Shield joist tape. I actually bought this way back before we even knew we were doing a waterproofing system. So this isn't anything special besides the fact that it is an acrylic adhesive tape, and it's not technically supposed to go on EPDM rubber. Another manufacturer, G-Tape, is kind of the industry leader, I would say, when it comes to joist tape. They make a version of this which is specifically designed for EPDM seaming for this exact application for pond liners that are turned into deck waterproofing systems. But I already have all of these rolls, and I just looked up the data sheet. It's very similar to the G-Tape version. The adhesive isn't quite as strong, and it's not technically rated for EPDM, but I did a little test of my own with a square of this on some scrap EPDM, and it sticks very, very well. I'm not worried really at all about adhesion. What I care about most is that it's gonna seal the fasteners that go through it. So I'm gonna go ahead and use this 2-inch stuff on the joist, and then I have some 4-inch to go around the perimeter where the picture frame boards are going to fasten through with face screws. We're gonna be using a hidden plug system on those. So I wanna make sure that those screws are going through joist tape as well. So like I said, the purpose of this tape is not to seal between the two rubber seams. That's why I'm not trying to go off over to the side here. I'm trying to stay centered on the joist so that we cover those staples and cover the area where the screws are going to go eventually into the joist. Got my handy squeegee here. Helps keep the bubbles down. The nice thing about this acrylic adhesive tape is it does not stick to itself. You can pull it apart from itself, unlike butyl tape, which is the less expensive option. But this stuff isn't crazy though. This is less than 20 bucks a roll. I mean, I feel like a good roll of duct tape is gonna cost you at least 10 these days. So over a whole deck, I mean, I'll probably use 5 rolls doing this, so $100 for something that you really don't want to have to go back and do, and that could potentially prolong the longevity of the deck quite a bit. Definitely a worthy investment. Even if you're not doing the waterproof system, I would never build a deck without joist tape in today's day and age. At least something there. Even if you're going to go with the cheaper butyl stuff, you can get the cheap stuff on Amazon for like a few dollars a roll. It feels like $5 a roll. So you'd be crazy not to put it on, even if you're doing just a regular pressure treated wood deck. If you're not doing composite decking or anything like that, at least save the frame. Finally, in the home stretch for taping, it is hot on top of this material when you're in direct sunlight. It's like an oven radiating up off this thing. But I wanted to go into a little bit more detail about what we're doing at the edge here, because we'll be doing a picture frame deck, which means a solid board will run all the way around the perimeter and sort of cover the exposed edges of all the rest of the main deck boards. I just think it's a nicer look. But we had to accommodate the fastening for this edge board with some surface blocking at the parallel sides of the deck, the places where the joists are running in the same direction as the deck board. So what I'm doing for taping that is running a 4-inch band of tape on the outside and then running a 2-inch band right next to it. The idea here is we got to cover the staples on both edges, so that is accomplished, but we have to think about the fact that this board is going to be sitting about right here. It's going to have a little bit of an overhang, 1 inch here above the stairs, but 1.5 inches everywhere else. And we're going to be using a hidden fastener system, doing a fastener around here and here, straight through, and it's a plugged screw basically, with a matching plug is the same as the deck board. So this 4-inch band will cover us for this board, but then we still have normal deck boards coming in this direction across all the joists. So this piece of tape covers these staples at the edge here, but then also covers where these boards are going to be coming in. And we'll be using a clip system. This is actually one of the clips right here. It's a Starborn product. It's like a little plastic T-shape, and that goes right in there. So this piece of tape will allow us to seal this screw here for all of the field deck boards. And just like that, waterproofing is complete. So we're ready for deck boards up there, but obviously the whole system is not complete. All the water still drains right off the end of these baffles when it does rain. So we are going to be mounting a seamless gutter all along this beam. We'll have to pack out the beam a little bit to compensate for these posts that are sticking out here. And we'll drape all of these baffles into the gutter so that all the water is contained. It doesn't drip down here under the deck at all. And then I actually stubbed a spot out back when we were doing our downspouts way back. I did have the foresight to think that I might be doing a waterproofing system on this deck. So I put a Y off that and left a stub out underground that we can connect that gutter to. But that is going to be a project for a different day. I do have a piece of seamless gutter laying around that will work for this, and that's what I'm gonna use. But that's gonna be a whole nother piece of work to get that installed. Gotta go find the underground stub out that I left. So for now, it's just gonna drain out right here, which will be fine. It doesn't actually drip down the beams or anything, which is kind of nice. It still just drops straight to the ground. So this is where I'm gonna leave it for the waterproofing video. Before signing off though, there is one thing that I wanted to address, which I saw some comments about in other deck waterproofing videos, which was the debris situation. What happens when there's, little bits of sticks or leaves that fall down in the cracks and end up in these bladders? Is that going to eventually clog things up over time? And how long is it going to last before you have to access these and clean those out? And I think that's a valid concern. It's something that I thought about too. So this is going to be my solution for it. On this side of the deck beam, you can actually see all the way up in the gutter and access it. So if anything were to ever get stuck, you could aim a hose right that way or drag a brush or something all the way down there and clean that out from underneath the deck. That assumes though that there's no finished material on this, which I do plan to do eventually. And so what I'm thinking is I will build like almost like a little access panel. Maybe it'll have a hinge back here on the beam where I can like unlatch that, it'll swing down, and then I can have access to up underneath here if I ever need to, you know, just tap them to get some debris out, or maybe there's a freezing issue or an ice dam and I need to get up under here to melt things out. Whatever the issue is, I do think it's a good idea to be able to have access to these and that it's not just permanently closed off. So when the video comes around for finishing this underdeck ceiling, I'll be sure to have that thought out a little bit more. But in the meantime, waterproofing is done. We are ready for some deck boards. Catch that on the next video. As always, thanks for watching and we will see you on the next one.